Tuesday, November 18th. The year is 2020, and we are living in a paradox. It is the best of times. It is the worst of times. We are seeing a planetary awakening to a UN corporate-directed Great Reset that is designed to usher in an end of all Western freedom and its export around the planet. The end of due process, the end of the right of assembly, the end of every basic freedom. That is the goal of the Communist Chinese, who are unified with the United Nations in stating. They even have articles in the LA Times saying Xi Jinping's mission is to crush American system and democracy and our republic. And that's really the attitude of these corporations. They are conquering everyone very, very cold-bloodedly. And now you see the footage, if you're a TV viewer, radio listeners, it's on Infowars.com, of the police in Germany savagely beating and attacking men, women, and children with batons, men in armor running at full speed into crowds of civilians who simply want a right to have their business, a right to go outside, a right to not be tracked, a right to not live in something worse than the Stasi East German system. This is classic tyranny of the highest grade, upgraded with a high-tech overload. And this system is the post-industrial world. And you see the footage coming out of Australia of people that have been locked for weeks and in some cases months in hotels, tourists that can't get out and aren't even allowed to leave their rooms. In Australia, people have to have their dogs take a crap inside the house and they throw it out the windows. This is a lockdown. This is training us to be prisoners. And I know as an audience, you're amazing people and you get this and you understand it. I'm on the ground here in Georgia. We're going to be demonstrating at the Capitol in just a few hours. Owen Schroyer is about to take over. We're going to have live feeds from on the ground and so much more. But it is heartening to see all these different German states saying no to Merkel. You're basically a dictator that's rigged the elections by manipulating the parliamentary system. You're nothing but an EU globalist, and you're just trying to bankrupt us and make us dependent on you, and it's insane. And all the big corporations, they're seen as vital. They're seen as essential, so they stay open. All their stocks gone up. Their profits have gone up, in many cases 100% in just the last year. And it was the big tech companies that implemented the first lockdowns that then leftist governments followed suit with. So this is a global economic siege, a war by the left, by the big corporations, by the Communist Chinese, all lockstep to consolidate power, take our freedoms, and bankrupt us. And the very local governments that are going to see their systems bankrupted by these shutdowns are the ones with the police, quote, just following orders. But that violates the Nuremberg precept of just following orders does not protect you. It violates the Geneva Convention. And remember, behind all of this, you can't just submit and get your welfare check now and live in your house. This is beyond Cloward and Pivot. They want medical tyranny. This is about forced inoculations, apps on your phones, tracking everywhere you go and what you do. And now in California and in places in London and places in Germany, they're all announcing the QR codes to be able to go into businesses that read your phone to prove you've, quote, been vaccinated. That's why all the restaurants now have the QR codes and say that they don't have menus. So they're getting you ready to even be able to go and sit down at a restaurant that you've got government pass, you've got government authorization. This is the mark of the beast out of Revelation. It's not coming, it's here. And so many of the big Baptist churches and Catholic churches are putting in the QR codes and doing all the same thing because they're not churches. They've been taken over by this system. So it's going to all get rapidly worse very, very quickly until you say no. The level of tyranny we'll live under is the level of tyranny you put up with. So I'm asking everyone, take the live feeds from band.video. Take the live feeds from Infowars.com/show. Share them by hand. Share them on email. Share them on text. Tell people on the street. Put them on the back of business cards. That's how we're going to override this. People are really listening right now. Traffic to Infowars is up like 5-fold. That's great. The awakening is here. And the system is really revealing itself. And remember, the globalists aren't God. God is in charge. And this is a great test, but we're going to come through this together. But the answer is stand up and say no. Owen Schroyer's coming up. Live feeds on the ground from here in Georgia. I'm Alex Jones. Please spread the word. Ollie, this is just one example of dozens that have already come out in the last day. This is just now breaking in Georgia where we are.
Just this morning, it is breaking news. David Schaefer, the Georgia Republican Party chair, tweets this. One of our monitors discovered 9,626 vote error in DeKalb County hand count. That is in Atlanta. One batch was labeled 10,707 votes for Biden and just 13 for Trump, an improbable margin even for DeKalb standards. The actual count for the batch was 1,081 for Biden and 13 for Trump. Had this counting error not been discovered, Biden would have gained enough votes from this one batch alone to cancel out Trump's gains from Fayette County, Floyd, and Walton. Folks, we have to audit the vote, and we have to check the signatures in Georgia. That's why Alex Jones and I are here at Ground Zero, Georgia.
Incredible. Ollie, what you're saying is, in that building, they have now found more scams from the counting of the ballots in that building behind me that just so happens to have CNN on it. I don't believe it. There's no way CNN ever does anything criminal. And there's no way there's a blip right there either.
Well, CNN owns this town, and at the CNN Center is where they counted the Fulton County ballots. And folks, election night, we didn't know how many ballots there were. They just kept coming and coming and coming, just like we see out of Broward County, Florida, where we did Stop the Steal 2018. We warned the Republican Party this was the method. It's not just the Dominion machines, it's the mail-in ballot, it's the absentee ballots, it's these provisional ballots that show up. We have to stop the steal.
Come on, let's CNN count the votes. We're standing here in Atlanta, Georgia at Olympic Park, the site of the false flag attack that was blamed on Richard Jewell during the Olympics. And there's the CNN Center and building right behind me, and we have the Goodyear blimp flying around. This is quite a conflagration happening. And guess what else happened? They counted a lot of the mysterious votes that had problems inside the CNN building. That was a ballot counting center. So as Stalin said, I don't care who casts the vote, I care who counts them. Well, Ollie Alexander, the national founder coordinator of Stop the Steal movement, is here. We've been all over the country together fighting. We've reached a critical juncture here in Georgia. But first, big breaking news, Ollie, on the situation that is just explosive, like out of a Hollywood gangster movie in Michigan. Tell us about that.
So in Wayne County, Michigan, that's Detroit, the two Republicans and two Democrats sit on the canvassing board. The Republicans decided not to certify the election, but under duress and threat from hundreds of thousands of tweets, the leftist Antifa, BLM, they reluctantly agreed under the condition that the Secretary of State would do an audit. We are in legal and constitutional limbo as we don't even understand what that means. What are their rights? So what we have is bullying from the left against people who just want to certify clean elections, not bad elections. And we're just in constitutional limbo, folks. You're going to have to watch InfoWars. You're going to have to watch the Stop the Steal movement as we navigate this through patriots in the streets and through the courts.
And let's talk about why they were saying we're not certifying this and calling for an audit, which they're still calling for an audit, but they did go ahead and say they're going to certify it because things were, quote, out of balance at a record level.
So they're out of balance at a record level. I think it was double from 2016 to now. And the Republicans are like, there's a human error here. Let's figure that out before we send it to the Secretary of State's office. And then the Secretary of State would certify, and then depending on state law, the governor or some other automatic statutory entity would then do the final certification to send the electors to the Electoral College.
When they talk about out of balance, it's a lot of different things that are happening, but you've got 80+, 90+% turning out. Some precincts, 100% of the voters turning out.
120, 130, 150, more votes than there are voters in some cases.
You've got dead people by the thousands voting.
Yes.
In Detroit. This is going on. So the brainwashing of, there's no proof. Mainstream media won't show the proof, but at Infowars.com and Gateway Pundit and all these places, it's a fire hose of proof and eyewitnesses and whistleblowers and undercover video of them in Detroit going, listen, we're not letting poll watchers in here. We're going to violate the law. And then you have the Democrats that run the state. Well, one of them is a former high-level Southern Poverty Law Center. She comes out and starts threatening people that are reporting on it, saying, I'll arrest you for reporting on this. I mean, we have the intimidation, we have the fraud, we have the cover-up, we have it all. The people need to stand up peacefully and say no to this.
Yes, Michigan is very dangerous. George Soros owns the Attorney General there. If we go there, they're going to arrest us, and we might just have to make them. Pennsylvania Supreme Court made a decision last night, just to piggyback off what you said about poll watchers. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court in a 5-2 decision said it doesn't matter that there were no Republicans in some of these polling locations. It's fine. That's settled, folks. Sure, we can take it to the Supreme Court, but I warned everyone weeks ago. Chief Justice Roberts set us up with the with the Wisconsin decision when he said, "Oh, it's fine if a state court decides something I don't agree with." Federalism. So, don't look for relief out of the Supreme Court out of this bad Pennsylvania decision where they say you don't need Republican poll watchers. That's not damages.
We need relief from the legislatures.
Yes.
In the federal and state constitutions. It's time for them, when there's fraud, to call emergency sessions, which is why we're in Georgia. Tell folks about what we're doing the next 4 days in a row at high noon.
So at high noon at the Georgia State Capitol, Alex Jones, myself, and other patriots are here, and we are marching, and we are telling the Secretary of State, stop, don't certify. The chances of that happening are 0, but we might stop the deadline that happens 24 hours after that, and that's when Governor Brian Kemp, who's been wobbly in this whole issue, then has to certify the election from his office. When he signs a piece of paper certifying the election, it puts a Democrat slate of electors to the Electoral College. We cannot have this to happen. If this happens, our remedies in court then become next to nil. What he has to do, what Governor Kemp has to do today, is call the state legislature into an emergency session, keep them through January 9th, and give them broad oversight so they can reclaim their constitutional powers. And it's their duty, it's their obligation to select electors. They need to reclaim that constitutional power.
That's right. It was Nancy Pelosi's daughter that tried to get the electors, after Trump had been elected, to say no. She said she had a right to do that. That's really questionable. But this is the legislature during the election process before it's been conceded. And look, if I thought Trump had really lost, I wouldn't be here. He got more votes in all these battleground states than he got last time by a huge margin. He got almost 11 million more votes nationally than he got last time. He has all these giant rallies. They froze it that night. And then all the votes came in every state straight up, and we have all the evidence in Georgia of incredible fraud that's coming out. I mean, the Project Veritas one, all of it, undercover videos, people inside saying that they would take ballots for Trump and say that they were ballots for Biden. This is systematic Democrats who believe they can break the law because Trump, quote, is Hitler. It's absolutely dangerous, and what's really happening is Communist China is bragging they're taking this nation over. We've got more live reports on the ground coming up today. Obviously, you're watching right now. Owen Schroyer is hosting. I'll be back on the broadcast from the street coming up, but we taped this right before the live show today. It'll also be posted at Infowars.com, so please get this out. That's why we're here. That's why your numbers are needed. We expect there to be hundreds today, thousands tomorrow, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands coming up on Saturday. Be here and stop the steal. You are the modern Paul Revere's. Again, Ollie, tell folks where they visit your website to find out the real Stop the Steal movement, not neocons hijacking it to derail it.
StopTheSteal.us. StopTheSteal.us. Go there and find out how you can participate. We're in all 50 states. We're all pissed off about this, and we highlight the contested states of where we need you. If you can get in your RV, if you can get in your truck, if you can get in your bike, if we, the people, will put pressure on these judges and these politicians, they'll be forced to react to our moves.
All right, more live coverage with Owen Schroyer right now.
Love you too! Stop the steal! Stop the steal! Everyone watching, take to the streets! Leave your jobs! Take to the streets! Our election is not transparent. We're not allowed to check signatures. We're not allowed to ask questions. Facebook and Twitter are deplatforming us. We must come out in the streets. Chant with me. Stop the steal! Stop the steal! Stop the steal! Stop the steal!
This is the Alex Jones Show on InfoWars. And Alex Jones is right there on the screen, bullhorning the state capitol building in Atlanta, Georgia. I think that's Nick Fuentes to his left. Rob Dew there on screen as well, filming. And you can see the crowd gathered behind him where we were last week. I believe even, was that on last week of this day or yesterday? Point is, we are rallying the troops. We are on a forward march. We are louder than ever, and we are going to stop this steal. But even if the Democrats get away with this, they've been so caught. Whatever comes at the end of this is going to be